track here unless I get really carried away here, but which could happen. We'll see. Last time I preached was Christmas Eve, and I said that we were going to, right after that, go on a Christmas trip to California. And as most of you know, had to call an audible on that. We actually tried, though, twice to drive to California. We packed up Sunday morning. We're going to take 2 days to do it. And it was 6 o'clock in the morning. We were in the car, and the snow was just coming down. And I just was looking at the forecast, worried about the mountain passes, particularly in Oregon and California. And I decided, you know what? The forecast looks like it's going to clear up, stop snowing in Monday morning. So let's just stay here today. And then let's just leave really early Monday, like 3 a.m., and we'll drive straight 19 hours. We'll get there at 10 p.m. So that was the plan. So then we got up at 2:30 in the morning, Monday morning, packed the car again, because we unpacked and packed it again, and we left by 3:15 a.m., pretty good, and we didn't get all the way to Lakewood by the time we were going like 35, 40 miles an hour, and I said, forget this. My mom and dad are not worth this. You know, so, Mom and Dad, if you were listening, sorry about that. But that's just the reality. We're not going to do this. So we turned around and came home, and we just had a great week, kind of hunkering down. We didn't even let people know right away that we had come home. We were kind of laying low, and just had a great time. We binge watched Battlestar Galactica as a family. We played some first-person shooter video games together, and let me just tell you. It's humbling to get taken out by your wife repeatedly. I mean, Sandy's brutal with a submachine gun in those games. Her gamer tag, and I kid you not, this is literally it, that she came up with, Sand Power, be afraid. That's her gamer tag. But anyway, we had a great time. But then after a few days, I realized I probably should let people know, because I'm starting to get texts every now and then of people who are worried about us and who are praying for our safety. And so, oh my goodness, so I let people know, and then I kind of felt bad because and Pat Loveless even emailed me, and I think she was glad that we stayed home and didn't go, but she kind of openly wondered, so what does God do with those meaningless prayers that weren't really needed? Do they get carried over to real things that really do need to be prayed for? So I'm sorry, those of you who really prayed for us, our safety while we were really at home playing video games and binge watching Galactica. So great will be your reward in heaven. Anyway, as we move into the new year, I just want to give a little update on where we're headed with our next series. We finished the Life of Moses series toward the end of Christmas time, and our next series that we're going to start next week is the book of Hebrews. So we're going to go through the book of Hebrews. I've never actually preached the book of Hebrews. I'm really excited to do this. And so next week, I'm just going to give basically an introduction to the book of Hebrews, as well as I'm going to reveal to you the question that has been on the hearts and minds of scholars, pastors, spiritual people for the last 2,000 years. They have not been able to figure out the question of who wrote the book of Hebrews. And so what they were not able to figure out, you are so lucky to have me as your pastor. I am actually going to give the big reveal and tell you who wrote the book of Hebrews, or at least who I am 82.3% sure wrote the book of Hebrews. So that'll be next week. You can go to the next slide there just to show our schedule. Probably can't read that, but that's okay. And then the week after that, we're going to have a missions-focused Sunday, kind of a missions focus. And we're going to hear a video from the Kraft family, kind of report on their recent trip to the jungle in Peru. And then we have some missionary friends that Mike and Linda know who are Mongolian church planters in Mongolia. And they're going to be sharing with us as well. So really a focus on frontier mission work that Sunday. And then the week after that, we'll launch into our series proper. Now, if you look at our series there, you may notice there's in the preacher column, there's some question marks there. And what the deal is there is that basically those are the Sundays that I would have assigned Devante to preach. And I kind of miss having Devante preaching once a month because it gave me a chance to focus on some other things and gave you a break from me for a week. And so what I decided to do, since we don't have Devante with us, but we do have some great teachers within our congregation. So I've asked 5 of you to kind of team teach with me. So there's 5 of you who are going to fill those slots. And so I've got 4 solid yeses, and I've asked the 5th one recently, and so I'm waiting to hear back. But next week I'll reveal to you who those 5 are that will be team teaching Hebrews together with me. So excited about that. This morning, though, what I want to just do, I just want to give a brief vision encouragement. I'm not going to give my typical vision talk that I give once or twice a year. Rather, I just want to, as we move into the new year, just give a word of encouragement and a challenge as we move into the new year. I, too, like Mark, appreciated Mike's message from last week, especially just that encouragement to really invest in the relationships that are so important to us. We need each other. And the reality is, these 18 months have hurt us in every church. Every church has suffered by the fact that we have not been able to be together on a consistent basis. It just has. And it feels like we're coming out of that little by little. And December was great when we had our family meeting, potluck over at PCF together. Those of you who came, there almost was a feeling of somewhat normalcy, being together again, laughing together, eating Mia's spicy salmon chowder. And of course, the highlight was, Kermit the Frog and Bob Dylan leading us in some Christmas songs. But it was just fun to be together and to laugh again together. And so with the caveat that we're still not quite totally through with the pandemic, and so there's still a bit of a sliding scale of re-engagement that we're still having to go through, I just want to echo Mike's call to really invest in the coming year in rebuilding the relationships. Because even though we have such history and a tightness, just not being together, we suffer from that. And so we need to be together. We need to invest and not take those relationships for granted. So I want to reiterate that, but then also I want to share just a few relationship-oriented goals for 2020. And I was going to call these New Year's resolutions for us as a church, but I know for many of us, New Year's resolutions are basically your to-do list for the first week of January. And so, but maybe as you consider these 3 goals or action items that I'll suggest for you and for me in the coming year, just ask yourself 2 questions. First, ask yourself the question, what is God's New Year's resolution for my life? What is God's goals for my life? Because that's what really matters, right? And if you phrase it like that, what is God's New Year's resolutions for me, then it puts the weight on Him. He's the one, and He's probably going to do a better job than us, following through on His New Year's resolution. So just ask that question: God, what is your New Year's resolution for me in the coming year? What's your goal for me in the coming year? And then the second, I would just ask you to consider is if possibly these action items that I'm going to suggest for you and for me might be some of those resolutions that God has for you and for me and for us as a church family in the coming year. And so let me just share those action items that I'm encouraging us to have in the coming year, each of which really have both a relational component as well as it's connected to our vision as a church. And the first one has to do with our action teams. Yeah, go to the next slide, next slide, next slide. There you go. Has to do with our action teams. One of the things I just love about our congregation is that this was a part of this church's DNA before I ever got here, that this is an active congregation. You are not a bunch of pew sitters. And I think especially when this church first formed, those of you who can think back to those early days who were around when this church formed, there was an excitement that I kept hearing about and a joy as everybody was using their gifts, and everybody just had to actively get engaged and involved just because you had to, or else this church thing didn't happen. And so there was just a great excitement around that. But as the years have gone by, a danger for us and for every church is to fall back into a familiar pattern in which ends up being often a small number of people doing a majority of the work, such that you end up falling into a place of being comfortable, and before you know it, some of us end up pew sitters again. And so I would just want to give us a word of encouragement and challenge to us, let's not do that. And one of the ways we can avoid doing that, a safeguard, is to revitalize and regrow and strengthen what we call our action teams. And I love that as a church, we don't have committees, we have action teams. And that was something that you built in to this congregation. It's part of the governance plan of this congregation before I ever got here. And though those action teams have changed somewhat over the years, the principle is really the same. So if you go to the next slide, our current action our current kind of organization as a church is this. We've got an elder team that gives spiritual oversight and support to the congregation and really to the action teams. We have the admin team that really gives logistical oversight and support, but it's really those action teams that do the ministry and work and the action of One Hope Church. And those are prayer, inreach, outreach, international missions, communications and publicity, worship service support, special funds, spiritual growth and discipleship, and visitor connections. And so for each of these action teams, there's some things in common. They each are responsible for a certain aspect of this church's life and mission. And number two, they each have a lead. There's a team lead for each of these action teams. And then three, each of them have a board of elder liaison who kind of offers support to the team and kind of spiritual oversight to make sure they stay on task with the vision of the church. If there's one area, though, that I think we need to see some further growth, it's really in growing the teams, the actual teams of some of these action teams. In part, just I think because of the 18 months of a global pandemic when we just couldn't do a lot of things together, that's part of it. But also just, I think, a normal process of getting comfortable has resulted, I think, a little bit, and there's a danger right now for us in ending up, again, with a smaller group of us doing a majority of the work. And that's changing. That's already changing. Actually, there's already some who are jumping into some of these action teams. We've got some, we're mixing up some of the leadership a little bit, which is always a good thing to shuffle the deck a bit. But bottom line is we need more of you to jump in and help with some of these action teams. And many of you are, but if you're not, or if you're newer and you didn't even know we had these action teams, just know that we need you. We need your gifts. We need your spiritual passions that God has given uniquely to you. There's a reason you're here at One Hope Church, and so we need each of you to kind of help us as a church move forward into greater health and vitality. And perhaps for some of you, there may be some of you who've actually been in a particular role in an action team for a long time, and you may be experiencing a little bit of burnout. And so maybe the call for you might be just to consider, maybe I should switch action teams. Maybe I should try something else for a season and train somebody else to do what I'm currently doing. So just be thinking about that, praying about that, and jump in when you're ready. And we're going to be communicating more about this in the coming weeks, about what the action teams, who the leaders are of each action team, what they do, how to join them. But for now, your action item is simply, would you just pray and ask God what his New Year's resolutions are for you, and if one of his resolutions for you might be to get greater involvement in one of these action teams, or maybe a new challenge to switch action teams and try something else, or maybe a creative challenge to help start a new action team that does something we haven't even thought of. I mean, it's going to mess up my little cute, perfect, nice little chart there, but that's okay. If there's another action team, I'll adjust. So that's the first one. First action item is regarding those action teams. Now, the next action item is in the area of, you guessed it, Life Together groups. Now, if you've been here for any length of time, you've heard my spiel many times on small groups, cell groups, Life Together groups. But for those of you who are newer, just to kind of recap, basically at One Hope Church, we have, like many churches do, small groups. We call them Life Together groups. But where our model differs slightly from other churches in town is that we really do, as a leadership team, see these small groups that we call Life Together groups as equally important as this large group gathering, that both are equally church. It's real church to meet in a home. It's real church to meet here. We need both. And the analogy that we keep coming back to is that of a bird. A bird has two wings, needs both wings to fly straight. And so the church is a bird that has two wings. And one is the large group wing and one is the small group wing. We need both. We absolutely need both to be strong and healthy. However, I will continue to maintain that if push comes to shove and you're just so busy that a week comes by and you just can't do both, that I would rather see you skip the Sunday morning large group wing and make the small group your priority, because that is where real church happens. Now, I love Sunday morning worship here. I love that we're able to do this again. I love preaching live. Believe me, this is easier than making those worship service videos every week. I love our worship band and large group worship. I love this. But I just know that spiritual growth, real spiritual growth, happens far more effectively in that small home-based worship setting where you know each other and you can come together and build those relationships and share your gifts with one another. And you're not just sitting, listening to someone talk, but you're discussing the message, whatever the teaching was for the week. You're discussing it together. You're applying it to each other's lives. You're praying together. You're doing outreach together. You're inviting other people in. And this whole model of doing church in the home, this is not a Peter thing. This is a New Testament thing. This is how the New Testament structured the church to function. And for the first 300 years of the church's history, this is how the church worked. The church met in homes as the church, and then would collectively kind of do large group stuff together, would have large group teaching and worship times. If you look at the New Testament, you will find no example anywhere in the New Testament of a church having a small group ministry. It does not exist. It's not biblical. Rather, the churches were small groups meeting in homes who collectively gathered together to do large group things. You could say they had a large group ministry. And so I would like us to get to the point as a church that we see ourselves as a church of small groups, life together groups, meeting in homes who just have a really healthy, vibrant, large group ministry here at Ocean 5. And so as we move into the coming year, we have some rebuilding to do here, some recapturing of the progress that which we made in the years kind of leading up to the pandemic. You know, pre-pandemic, every year we were kind of growing those Life Together groups, getting more and more people involved. We got to the place pre-pandemic, we had 67% of our church family actively involved into a Life Together group, and we're just nowhere near that right now. And so here is my second action item for you to consider for the coming year, is that to re-engage regularly in a Life Together group. If maybe you were part of one pre-pandemic and it hasn't really, of course, for very understandable reasons, not been meeting regularly, as those get relaunched in the coming weeks and months, just to get reconnected to those Life Together groups, to get engaged again. Or I see some new groups emerging, kind of morphing out of the house church experiment that we did for the 12 months in which we weren't able to meet corporately. Some of those may launch as a new, fresh Life Together group that you could join. Or if you're in a Life Together group that has continued to meet, great. Just continue to be focused on meeting together and making those relationships a priority, and be actively involved in inviting new folks in. Because we have new folks that have come to our church family during the pandemic that we need to invite in to be part of those Life Together groups as well as to reach out to people who have yet to come to know Jesus. Into these Life Together groups, where next slide, each of these Life Together groups really have a certain DNA. And as we move forward and have an opportunity to relaunch some of these, I'm really going to guide us to really hold us to greater accountability that each of our groups really share this DNA, and that is that one, they each have a leader and a co-leader. Each begin with about 8 to 10 people, because you do need a minimum amount to really have a really vibrant Life Together group, home church experience. But then when they get to be about 16 plus adults, that's about at the point where really meaningful communication, it just breaks down. There's just too many lines of communication at that point. And so at that point, you multiply into 2 groups, and the co-leader of one group becomes the leader of the other, and each group takes on a new co-leader. And in each of these groups, 5 things happen. Maybe not every week, but these are 5 things that happen on a regular basis. Number one, there's real community and relationship happen in the context of that small worshiping community. Worship happens. And that may or may not be a guy with a guitar leading some singing, though it can be. It could just be reading a psalm or just having a moment of silence and just inviting the presence of Jesus. There's a beautiful intimacy in worship in the small group setting that's different than what we have experienced on Sunday morning. Sunday morning, when we're corporately together, God expresses his greatness, his glory, his majesty. But in the small group setting, he often expresses his intimacy, friendship with God, a different expression of God we experience in that dynamic of worship. Number 3, Bible application. It's not a Bible study. It's rather a time to take the teaching of the week that you've kind of heard in the sermon and to apply that teaching to your lives, to talk about it, to wrestle with the text, and to allow the Holy Spirit to use the power of the Word of God in each other's lives. And prayer happens, and then also outreach happens, especially the reaching out together for other people who may or may not know Jesus, or people who are newer to our congregation, to invite them into these Life Together groups. They are not closed groups. And for those of you who are ready to jump in again to a Life Together group, I just encourage you to do so. As we're going to be launching more in the coming weeks, have this kind of relaunch the structure. Obviously, we're still in a little bit of a resurgence with Omicron, and so that may be a slow rollout, but I think we're nearing a place where we can soon begin to roll more and more of those out. So as you feel comfortable doing so, please get involved and re-engaged. If you're not ready to do that for whatever reason, for safety, health reasons, or just because your schedule doesn't allow for it right now, would you just pray about it and ask God, might this be one of your New Year's resolutions for me sometime in the coming year, that you would get involved again in a Life Together group. This is really absolutely one aspect of our church, not the only one, but one of the key aspects of us as a church that I believe can make us unique in Gig Harbor, that no other church in Gig Harbor is done. There are so many other great churches in town doing the normal thing. They've got the normal Sunday morning thing. They got the normal small group ministry, which is great, but I should say normal to today. Let's not do the normal thing to today. Let's do the normal thing to the early church. That was normal to the early church, but that really, I think, made it extraordinary, even if it makes us appear radical to our brothers and sisters in the more conventional church settings. I think so. Yep. You're preaching my sermon. Yeah, that there's a way to grow quicker in the small group settings. Easy to invite people in. You can have organic growth. Yeah. Thank you, Colin. And then finally, the third action item is what I'm calling a missing persons list. That we would each develop a missing persons list, and this has to do with what I think is the most important action item for us to truly consider. And it's in the area of re-engagement and with reaching out to those who do not currently attend any church or who may or may not know Jesus. And, we exist as a church. Our mission is to seek and save the lost. That is absolutely our mission. Jesus said, I have come to seek and save the lost, and then he left. And then he said, as the Father sent me, I am sending you. So we have the same mission that Jesus had, to seek and save the lost. It's a rescue mission. And that thought may feel daunting, but for right now, I don't want you to resolve to reach out more to people who don't know Jesus. Rather, I would simply invite you to invite God to tell you what his New Year's resolutions are for you for the coming year, and put that weight of responsibility on him fulfilling it. And so as you do that, based on what we know of his word, that he wants each of us involved in mission, and that he wants each of us in the church to be doing the work of evangelism, was just simply one beggar showing another beggar where to get bread, that might it be in this area of reaching out, might this be part of his resolution for you in the coming year? And I think the answer to this one is a definite yes. I mean, for me to tell you that God's resolution for you is to join a Life Together group or an action team, I can't say that. I can just encourage you to ask God if that might be something that he wants you to do in the coming year. But I think in this one, I can with a greater degree of authority say that yes, one of God's resolutions for you is absolutely, he wants you and me to grow in reaching out to people who don't know Jesus, who are not connected to any church family. That is our mission. That's why we exist as a church. And if that's just not your passion right now, like that's not on your radar, like who can I invite to Ocean 5, or always thinking who can I invite to my Life Together group, that's fine. But I would just kind of ask yourself the question, why is that? Why is that not on my radar? Why is that my passion? I've been doing that because I often don't feel that passion. It doesn't come naturally to many of us. I think there's maybe a few who really have that gift. For most of us, it doesn't come naturally. Rather, we have to cultivate a reminder that this is our mission, and to be thinking and mindful of people, to having our spiritual radars up for who God may be leading us to. And so that's where I want to get to this missing persons list. We did this about 4 or 5 years ago, and so I want to kind of reintroduce this, that I thought about getting a piece of paper and putting on everybody's chair, but I knew what would happen. Half of it would end up in the waste bin. So you guys are adults. You got a craft project this week. Just get a little piece of paper and write missing persons list at the top, and then 3 lines. And would you just think and pray, are there 3 people in your life right now that you are in relationship with at some level, a friend, a coworker, a neighbor, somebody you know who's in the area, who you could actually invite to Ocean 5 for church or to your Life Together for church. And here's the deal. I've done this, and the Lord has put certain people on my heart. There are 3 neighbors, and so I've kind of put them on my list. But I'm not ready, honestly, to just go up and ask them to invite them to church. I'm just taking the step of praying for them. And as I take that step to pray for them daily, as I do that, the spiritual passion begins to well up more and more. And suddenly my radar is up. I'm looking for opportunities to build relationship and trust with them. And so if we all do this together, there's going to be, multiply our 60 or 70 people that are, currently our active weekly worshipers times 3. That's over 200 people that we're praying for every day who could actually be invited at some point in the coming year. And if just 10% of those come, that's 20 new folks. So just, would you do that with me in this coming year, just to develop your own missing persons list, or just write in your Bible, whatever works for you. But think of 3 names, and if you're like me, you'll do this for 4 or 5 days and then forget about it. And so this is something that I'm going to take responsibility to remind us about and to keep it in front of us. How are you doing with your missing persons list? Are you still doing that? Let's help each other keep this on the radar in the coming year. So those are the 3 action items. Would you consider whether maybe the Lord may have you jump into an action team during the coming year, or just be more involved with one, or continue to stay strong with excellence on the one you're currently involved in, or maybe try a new action team, switch action teams? Would you make a commitment to be submitted to one another in real relationship in the context of a Life Together group sometime in the course of this coming year? And then finally, would you join me in filling out your own missing persons list of folks who may or may not know Jesus, and not connected to any church family? And I would just say, if we talk about saving the lost, and I don't know how we think about that term. In certain contexts, it almost sounds derogatory, like us and them, we're saved, they're lost. You don't need to think that way. We are all lost. We are all lost, and Jesus has come to the rescue. He has saved us. And so maybe you think of it in terms of who are those who are spiritually wandering, who need to be called home. Come, invite them home. As God has brought us home, that we would invite them to come home too. All right? Let's pray. Worship team, come on up.